All right, here we are. So this is like take 4 or 5 because been all kinds of issues with Facebook Live this morning. So we're doing on a different platform, bringing it to Facebook later. So good morning. How are you?
Morning, Kip. Good. I'm good.
Everyone, this is Karen. She has an amazing story, but I'll let you just quick introduction of yourself.
I'm Karen Peterson, and I am starting a brand, The Emotional Warrior. And as a result of that, I've been doing a lot of personal development on myself over the last year. I've been through a divorce based with infidelity and betrayal, and so I thought I really needed to kind of work on myself. I still kind of felt stuck going through the process, and I went to a workshop, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, time's flying. And that's where I met Kip and Marina, his beautiful wife, and they are masters of NLP. And going through the workshops I've been going through, um, I've heard about NLP, but I could never really grasp what it was. And so in this workshop where I met them, they did a day and a half of an NLP intensive dive, and I just was so fascinated with it. So I decided that it was time that I work towards a practitioner um, status with NLP. And so I signed up with them, and I've been training with them for probably about a month now, and it's going great. And one of the things that there were things that kept coming up for me, and I just felt stuck with things. And so I was chatting with Kip and Marina, and they felt it was a good idea to go through a breakthrough session. And so that's what I did. And I mean, it was truly amazing. And so that's what brings us here today, because Kip guided me through the breakthrough session. And I don't know if you want me to go into the details about that process, or if maybe I'll leave that to you since you're the master.
um, you'll be there. You'll be there soon. Especially the way you guys are attacking all the devouring the information. But yeah, so you experienced a marriage that for quite a while was you found out was not faithful, not the same values as you carry in your life. Um, but before that, how were relationships magical, or was it just this one, or any patterns you noticed?
Well, in looking back, especially now that I've been doing a lot more work on myself, because I think what happens is you kind of get in this ebb and flow of life. And unless you step back and take a look at that, I don't think you really see that there's an issue. You just kind of go along thinking it's normal. And even when I was married, it was like, well, this is kind of how marriage is. You have kids and you tend to grow apart. And, boy, was that. That is not the truth, and that's not the way to approach it. So once I started to step back, I did look at, I went into relationships, and I'm a sort of a giver when it comes to relationships, and I give and give and give. And there needs to be sort of an even give and take. And so to me, I didn't really know what that looked like. So I did find myself in relationships where I was very giving and maybe wanting to help and fix people. My father was an alcoholic, and so I have that codependency type of mentality around that. And I also have a situation from my past where I was raped at the age of 7. So I had that kind of experience, that baggage that I had been carrying around for years. And it's funny because when I went through my divorce process, I was meeting with a therapist, and we went in depth about when I was raped and the whole situation and things that came out of that. And it didn't seem like I was carrying any kind of negativity or hatred or anything associated with that. But when we did the breakthrough session, it was amazing what came out that was in my subconscious that I had no idea about. So it was pretty miraculous. So yeah, there's patterns for sure, but And that's the thing. It's like you don't necessarily see the patterns until you can kind of figure out a way to step outside and take a real look at what your life is over that timeline.
And so, anyone watching, I know there be questions about different things, and I'll I'll answer those at another live, so we don't make this one too long. And I know you have meetings to get to, but one of the prime directives of the unconscious mind is to repress memories and emotions and things for protection. So, to a lot of people, it's like you didn't have any anger or anything towards a rape, but then you discovered it. But it's once it's time to release, and the unconscious mind knows it's that it's safe to do that, and it's going to heal instead of hurt more. I remember that when you had the realization of like, oh my God, I didn't realize how angry I actually was with that. And it was this just like eureka moment of, wow, just awareness. And then of course it's gone in an instant. So there's no reliving it, at least in that moment, or ever again now. And then you had some interesting realizations building up to our session, that because we were talking about at first you're like, well, I kind of want to do one on health and fitness because of a situation, and then as we dug a little bit deeper, everything was linked to the aftermath of the rape. So what was that what was the confusion there? What was the incident that put health and fitness on the map?
Well, it was interesting because I was meeting up with a friend, and I just kind of got like this sense that it's like it kind of just sits inside of you, and like I said, I had no idea like what was going to come out or when it was going to come out, and maybe I should give a little bit of background around the rape, because I think that is there's some pivotal information. So it happened when I was 7, and it happened a few times. And mind you, at age 7, I didn't know what sex was. I didn't know what rape was. I didn't know what any of this was. I was 7. And so this act happens to me, and, I come and go. It's sort of like we went over to my parents' friend's house, and it happened. I won't get into the specific details because it's really not that important, but the fact that it happened, and then, flash ahead to the age of 13 or 14, and I'm sitting in health class, and we're learning about, it was the sex ed lesson. And I started to like put the 2 and 2 together at this point. And, it was so weird because it was almost like a light bulb went on, like, oh my God, this is what happened to me back then. And it was this was probably 5 years prior to that. So it was so long ago. And I was like, wow, I'm like, so weird. And I started having nightmares. And I started having nightmares that I was pregnant. So that's when I told my mom about it. And it was the kind of thing where I don't know how many weeks it was going on that I was having the nightmares, but it was a while. And I finally just couldn't handle it anymore myself. So I woke up one night, I woke her up, and I told her about it. And I don't remember if I told her not to tell anybody. I might have, because I was embarrassed by it. And I really don't, but I basically told her, and it was like nothing was said after that point in time. And then flash ahead to I'm 16 or 17, and I was at home. I believe it was in the summer. And I was at home. I had gone to boarding school, other stories with that, but it was a wonderful experience. And I got to actually live away at school in high school. So I loved that experience there. But I was at home for vacation, summer vacation, I believe. And I don't know, maybe an hour or two before my mom told me that she's having this guy that raped me over to tutor him for his military exam. And I remember being like irritated.
He was, and it's like she knew he was the person that raped you at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, she did. And I remember being irritated, but of course I had this mentality like, I can handle anything. I don't need any help. And that comes out of, something that happened between my father and I. So I had already established this. I don't need anybody's help. I'm strong enough. I can handle things myself. And so I thought this is just one of those other situations. And so we were in the kitchen, and we happened to be alone for a few moments, and he referenced something from back, during the actual act of the rape. And I didn't say anything. I was amazed he even brought it up. And I just didn't say anything, and I just left. And I don't remember thinking about it after that. I don't remember saying anything to my mom after that. But what's interesting and what's come out of that is that I was kind of holding this anger towards my mom, which I didn't even realize. And the anger didn't really manifest itself until I was going through my separation and divorce. And again, this is where I talk about how when I can kind of step out and look back at the progression of my life and when things happened. And I started to realize I got a short wick or short temper around her and around the things like we were talking about through the separation and the divorce. And she was just trying to support me. But I think that what was happening was I didn't feel supported back at the time when the rape occurred, because it was their friends and they would just go over and visit their friends. And then I told her, and I must not have gotten the support I needed at that point in time. And then she went and brought him over for tutoring, and that's even less support. So I think what happened as I was going through the divorce process, all this stuff kind of maybe started to surface. And I still need to clean it up with my mom. I did call her last night, but she wasn't there. So I will be having a conversation with her about that. But I mean, I've never been angry with her. We have a great relationship. It's just that I think in looking back that I got frustrated, because it's like, why are you trying to come in and help me now when you wouldn't help me back then? I think that's more the feeling.
Yeah,
And
it's inner child crying out, like getting doing exactly what a kid would do. Like we've talked about so many times, the unconscious mind is a toddler, and so it behaves in a way. And then especially there, it's like in this time when I was much younger, much more defenseless. It's like, why weren't you there? Why didn't you help me there? Why weren't you supportive? Whatever it is. And then, so that seed is still planted. And then, it's like, now you're coming to help me when I'm an adult. And it's like,
and now that I'm single and like I was dating, this was months ago, but in meeting guys, and I get to a point where I may not be interested in them. And I remember leaving this place and I wasn't interested. And I remember this voice coming out in my head, and it was in my 7-year-old, voice and tone, which was so weird and trippy to me because I'm a very visual person, and I could see that, and I could really hear it. And it was so weird because it was a really quick, like 15 seconds. And she said, or I said, you don't have to worry about that. You're fat, you're ugly, and that will protect you from being raped, because nobody will want you the way that you look. And so I've been carrying that around with me for years, and I had no idea that I was doing that. And so I've had the hardest time with like dieting and weight loss. I constantly, can put my mind to it and stick to something for maybe a couple of weeks at most, and then I completely sabotage myself. And so Kip was able to, during the breakthrough session, really get at some of those underlying beliefs that I had, and, really kind of pull those out of me during that session. And the session, I'll mind you, the session was, we had done a lot of work up to that point, and I've done a lot of work up to the point of, the breakthrough session. But we started at 10 and we went 10 a.m. and we went until about 6:18 p.m. And so the good majority of that was pulling out this information. And so you can see by the length of time that this stuff is really embedded and ingrained in the subconscious, far beyond anything that you're ever aware of. I had no idea.
Yeah. And which I told you from the whenever we set it up, it's like I can only give you a window of time. It's going to go where it needs to go, and even if it lasts 24 hours, I'm there with you. We've got it, whatever it takes to clean it out. But that was one of my yeah. Actually, that'll be in my probably top 5 longest sessions to get to that point.
And
But we were being very thorough, and because I say you'd brought so much to light, and then, but every time we had talked about, ever since I met you, and we talked about the rape incident, it's like I'm fine with it, just nonchalant, like there's no reaction. It's like, okay, it's locked in there, it's repressed. We need to go about it a special way to get it out and bring it to the surface, but then also do it in a way that's not going to install any more trauma. But that happens a lot with people who have gone through some kind of traumatic thing. Like PTSD and stuff show up in so many different ways when we've been through any kind of trauma. It's like, and there are plenty of cases where people don't even remember the event, have no clue. They just know I have this sabotage pattern showing up, or I have this pattern showing up. It's like, I don't understand why. And then start doing some work. And once the emotional effect, once we release those emotions around it, then all of a sudden the memory comes back, and it, really shocks people when that happens. But it's, the subconscious mind is doing its job and trying its best to protect us the way it's, designed to do with the tools it has installed. So, yeah, I remember when we were talking about the breakthrough section, I know I need one in relationships, but I also need one in health and fitness. And it's like, Dan, I can't remember if you just reached out to me in text and we got on a call or what it was, but then you brought up like, well, I just had this realization. Like, I was coming out of this restaurant from meeting this person, and my 7-year-old self started in the voice, and everything started talking to me. And yes, it's all linked to that rape. So it was all these little signs, but that was after we'd already talked about the breakthrough session. And, that's when a lot of stuff starts bubbling up for people, is because the unconscious mind knows, okay, we're going to be getting rid of this. It's time to start bringing it up and, easing it out. And then now, how's life been since? Like, usually I don't do these interviews until, several weeks in, a couple months or something. I'd like to allow you plenty of evidence procedures to pop up in the real world. But let's see, you've had stuff with neck, shoulder, and knees go away.
It's crazy.
And people saying you look much brighter. I can't remember the exact word, but yeah, what's that been like?
Glow or something. Yeah, It was crazy. Well, mind you, it's Thursday, and my session was on Monday of this week, so it's really only been it's not even 3 full days after. But I mean, it's amazing. Like Kip says, it's instantaneous. Once you can figure that out and unlock that subconscious and let that stuff out, as fast as it was to get in there and get embedded, in microseconds over a time period, it comes out just as fast once you can realize that. And so there's a lot of work that led up to that. But post that call, I mean, one of the things he said, how do you think you'll feel afterwards? And obviously I said to him, like, I have no idea. I'm like, I've been carrying this stuff around since I was 7, and it's like, first of all, I didn't even know I was carrying it around, which was amazing. So all this stuff is happening, and I had no idea that it was having the effect on me. I mean, I really thought that so much of this had to do with the betrayal and the infidelity in my marriage. And it was extensive. It went on for a number of years, and it involved a friend of mine too. So not only was I betrayed by my husband, but I was betrayed by my friend. And that was tough. And I really, really thought that the anger and everything else that I had associated with what was going on was based on the infidelity. But
and how long ago was it you found out? Because
it'll
was
be
about a year ago?
about the infidelity.
Yeah.
No, it'll be 5 years in October.
The divorce was that long ago?
No, my divorce it'll be a year in
Okay,
October, but I
but
found
it
out about
started.
the
Yeah,
infidelity, and then the infidelity went on for much
yeah, it
before
had been
I
almost
found out.
7 years. I think he said that you
It
know
was
it.
it was a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's what
yeah.
we did. Same thing. That's what brought you to the table. It's like, now there's a whole lot of stuff. That's just the most recent conscious memory of the reaction, the anger, and everything that. And we won't go into all the words you use to describe how you recognize the anger uh, for plausible deniability. Um, but yeah, that's human nature. It's like, no, it's right here. This happened. I was betrayed. I just need to work on this situation. And then, yeah, we start digging deeper, and it's something that you didn't even recognize any negative emotion around.
Right.
Is
Well, and
actually
one
what it is.
and coming out of that, I mean, there were the three pivotal pieces that, were pulled out of the subconscious that I was sort of plaguing myself with. And that was the one that I mentioned before, where it's like, I'm fat, I'm ugly, nobody wants me, and I need to stay in that as a protective mode. The second one was that I'm a failure because here I am starting my business as the emotional warrior to help people through infidelity and betrayal. And mind you, I've made great strides from where I was a year ago in March to now, or prior to Monday, I'd made great strides. But now it's like, but I felt one of the things was I felt like a fraud because here I was trying to help people and say that I've moved beyond, this infidelity and betrayal. And I had harbored so much anger and resentment still. And I couldn't release it and I couldn't figure out why. And so, it's all gone now. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing was just the fundamental fact that I'm just not good enough. And I have this internal drive to, it's that Nike commercial. It's like, just go out and just do it and you'll exceed. You put your mind to it, you can do anything you want to. And so it was like, that is two very competing kind of topics. It's like, I'm just not good enough. Yet I had this internal drive where I would constantly be pushing, 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 but the I'm not good enough was strong enough where I kept sabotaging myself. So think about it like climbing a mountain. I get almost to the pinnacle and then it's like, I'm just going to turn around and go back because I'm just not good enough to make it to the top. And this would be happening over and over again. And so, these were the three things that came out of that in-depth dive in the beginning of the breakthrough session. And so these are major, major pieces that when you can start to pull that out of yourself and realize that, like, this is what I've been living with. This is the decisions that I've been making. This is the choices that I've been making, and that it involves the relationships I've had. You start to think, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So when Kip asked me, what was it like to live? What would it be like to live without this? How will you feel? I had no words for it except that I'll feel lighter. It'll feel like a boulder's lifted off my shoulder. I mean, I had no idea. And so to answer your question that you asked probably 15 minutes ago, I mean, I did. As soon as the session was over, well, it was funny because one of the things he asks as he's going through and doing some of the release work is when we were on the anger, he was like, where do you feel it in your body? And it was so interesting. Like my wrist, like all through here, I got an intense, intense pain and my fingers went numb. And remember me telling you that I was getting dizzy too, like lightheaded, and I was dizzy. So thank goodness I was sitting down. So like I was getting dizzy, but that intense feeling when we did the release around the anger emotion, my wrist hurt, and then it slowly like moved up and then moved up my arm and kind of stayed there. And then that's when you went and we did a release on the future. And then after he did that, it like dissipated. And then you went and did the other emotional releases. And after that, it was so weird because I just felt like I was like lighter, floating. I'm not as heavy. I mean, even though I haven't lost a pound, it's like I feel like I'm 20 pounds lighter. I'm not even kidding. I'm not exaggerating. And my neck was bothering me. I mean, I've been to the chiropractor. Like I'm constantly like my ribs get twisted back there. My C5 pops out. They pop it back in. It pops right back out. It's from all the tension and the stress. And I was getting to the point where I was like, "God, I got to go back to the chiropractor again. This sucks. I can't believe this is coming out." Now I keep blaming it on, my exercise because I'm big into CrossFit and I like that. But it has nothing to do with exercise. It was stress. And once you release that, my neck has not hurt since. My neck has not hurt since Monday night, since we finished that.
I didn't even you didn't even mention that before because it's like that's a physical thing. What's that have to do with any of this? And it's it's workout related in my head, and it's not going to be affected by this at all. And then that's like one of the first things you start doing, like I can move my neck. It's like, wow, I have so much release. It doesn't hurt at all. My shoulders feel good. And then and speaking of CrossFit, you had a breakthrough there as well.
Yeah, I was working out
Tuesday, I think, right?
yesterday. Yeah, I was working out with my trainer at CrossFit. And I do 1 day a week where I'll work out with him specifically to kind of hone in because I have this goal, which I kept sabotaging myself of I've always wanted to compete. I've always wanted to compete in a fitness competition. And so, but I have literally been sabotaging myself. I mean, I set this goal like over a year ago and I'm nowhere, I'm in the same place. Actually, I'm probably heavier than I was a year ago. So, I kept sabotaging myself. And so it's great because let's see where I am in a year. And it's going to take me some time to get there, but I'm going to get there. But
Even in a couple of weeks, I think you'll notice you'll see a gain for the positive. It's that's can confuse people sometimes when I say gain when you're aiming to oh hey man I want to lose weight. So, well, but we're making gains towards our goal. But yeah, start monitoring that. Like every 2 weeks or so, and then just noticing how clothes fit and the energy you have in the workouts too, especially because like we talked about the physical exertion of working out. That was your only form of stress relief, really, and it was getting a lot of the aggression out there. But now that you can go there just with energy and this lightness, you'll notice you'll have more energy and power to push through those things, and gains will start actually coming quicker because like we've talked about a lot in the class, the difference between a move away from and a move toward. That perception is huge, and now that you'll be able to move more toward what you want instead of moving away from being fat, and you don't have that hold of being out of shape and things for protection. That's been released. So it makes it so much easier to get rid of stuff when you're not trying to keep it for protection, which is completely understandable why that pattern was happening. Because when someone's been violated like that, especially in a rape, and that young and helpless, our minds start automatically looking for anything you can think of that's going to help and going to keep us safe and protect us. And then yes, you were going to tell the box step.
Oh yeah, the micros.
Start sidetrack.
Yeah, well, but we do box step ups, we do box jumps or whatever in CrossFit. For those that are not familiar, it's basically just like it's a very sturdy box that you either jump on, or in this case, you're stepping up. And I always use the 12-inch 1-foot box, always. I had a knee replacement 5 years ago. So I've always had this, I don't know whether it's probably a limiting belief. It's fine, but I'm a little overprotective of it too because I know it's only going to last so long. But anyway, I was working out on Wednesday, and he had high box step ups, and I think it was a 2-foot box, so it was a foot higher than what I normally do, and I thought, wow, I mean, the idea of stepping up with that. And he's like, you can step up with your right leg if you want the whole time. And I had to do 2 or 3 sets of 10. And literally I did it. It didn't hurt. I mean, I definitely have more weakness in my left leg still, but I could not believe that I did it. And I jumped down, and I've always had issues jumping down, and I was like stepping backwards. I was flowing through it. I didn't have to stop. It was so weird, like the feeling, because I just felt so much lighter. And like I was saying, it's like that whole idea. I just didn't feel weighted down. And I mean, I'm feeling it throughout my entire body. I'm not even kidding. I know people that are probably watching this are like, that's so really? But I'm like, I'm telling you, it's like for real. Like I feel like I dropped 20 pounds and I haven't dropped anything. I mean, it's only been a couple of days. So.
You dropped the most important weight, the emotional baggage. Now the rest, all the physical weight and all that, that's actually really easy. Well, as you experience, the dropping the emotional baggage is actually super easy once you're aware of how to do it. And so the beauty is now it's going to be we can always accumulate more baggage, but it's much more difficult to accumulate it now that you're aware of how it all works. Like we've talked about in the class and everything. And in our 5-step process, the first one is awareness, and that awareness helps release so much stuff before it happens anyway, because you catch onto it and it's like, nope, I'm not allowing that to accumulate. I'm just going to release it right now. So, yeah, and even just like, I mean, this could go so many layers because probably, like with the knee replacement though, and the pain around it and the idea, I mean, it makes sense automatically that we're like cautious of it. But the pains and stuff around it, again, that's that protection. It's like, wait a minute, as long as I'm thinking I have this weak joint here, I'm not going to exert myself too much to move towards my goal of getting into optimal health. And that's good because that's helping me stay overweight, stay protected, stay safe. It's all part of that. So that energy, everything around, and then the anger and all that stuff just gets stacked up there because like you've learned with us now, every cell of our body, every time we have a thought or emotion, neurotransmitters send it out to every cell in the body. And so that's how a lot of times these injuries have lingering pains for so long, because when we've been going through stress or any kind of negative state around that, we're focusing there, and things just get stuck. I'll do a live on that and explain that in more depth because I know you have a 12 o'clock appointment. Then you ran into a friend at Starbucks.
I ran into a friend at Starbucks, and this was on.
That was Monday night, I think, wasn't it?
No, it was Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday.
That was Tuesday. Okay, yeah.
I was working from there. I have a very barky doggy, and so sometimes when I just really need to hunker down. And it was so weird. I was so, I got there and I was so productive. It was Tuesday morning, and I was so productive. And it's funny because I got up and my son got his braces off that day, and so I was all excited to go do that. But I'm like, okay, I'm hunkering down. I have a couple hours, and so I got up, and my friend was kind of sitting there, and he was like, hey, he's like, I was going to bother you, but you seemed so intent to what you were doing. And I was like, I was super focused. And, normally it's like, I'm looking around at who's in there. And it was like, I was in my own little like zone. That's what I feel. I do. I feel like I'm in my zone. Like I grew up playing sports. I played sports all through high school and college. And I remember those games and those times where you just feel like you're in the zone and you're playing, and it's like everything's going well, and you just feel like it's the most awesome feeling. And I think that's the one thing I really miss about sports. but which is probably why I like CrossFit too. And so I just really, I feel ever since Monday, I feel like I'm in the zone. And so I was there, and I was just chit-chatting with him, and he was like, you have this like like glow about you, or I was like, so I was telling him a little bit about what I went through, and he's like, wow. He's like, that's, yeah,
And, and
yeah.
then you had a super cool experience last night, which I think many of us can relate to. I know I can. I know when we talked on Monday, one of the things you brought up was just the tendency to overeat. And I was like, well, when do you do it? And it's like, always. It's like, I don't not do it. It's like, it's just there. Um, uh, and it's like, never been able to pull away. If there's food there, I just can't stop. Yeah, I've had that experience in my past as well. So I can totally relate to that. And then, so we did a little technique to dress that up the other day, and had you go out and test it last night. Actually, well, you tested on your own. When are you gonna be able to check this out? I was like, well, I have dinner coming up in just a little bit with my son, and every time I eat a meal, that's when it happens. So, what happened last night?
Yeah, well, as you said, it's like the overeating always happens, which is crazy. Whether it's a sleeve of Girl Scout cookies or a pizza. And it's funny because this was after Monday, I was on an accountability call with my NLP partners, and hadn't eaten before the call, and I got a pizza. And I got a pizza for the kids, and I went with the thin crust because I was like, okay, I'll watch my carbs. I literally ate the entire pizza. And so I'm on the phone with Kip doing the follow-up call, and I said to him, I was like, I ate the entire pizza. I can't believe it. So like, and I thought, this is crazy. I'm still like stuck with this. It's so weird. And so you ran me through a switch pattern. That's what it's called, right? Switch
Swish,
pattern.
yeah, yeah,
And swish or switch?
swish, yeah.
Oh, swish. Oh, I've been saying that wrong. Okay. So we ran through a swish pattern.
Sorry, we haven't reached that point in the class yet. So by the time the test comes around for your certification, you'll know it inside and out.
I'm a little advanced. I'm a, rat. I'm the rat study.
The other people in class can be so jealous of you because you got to experience everything. So you'll be ahead of the game. But
Yeah. So we did this. It was like maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And the funny thing was my son called like right before we were starting. And so I had that on my mind. Oh, there's my doggy. Sorry. And I had that on my mind. And then I was going to just sort of, it was funny because I thought, well, maybe this isn't going to work as well because I'm kind of rushed. I knew I had to go get him, but I'm telling you, it worked like a charm. I mean, it is that effective. It's that fast. And so I went to dinner with my son. I was kind of craving chicken wings. I had been for a while. So we went to get chicken wings, and I get 10. I literally hadn't eaten all day. So I was starving. Normally we get like an appetizer, we get that. I mean, I just overeat all the, not only do I not know when to stop, I consistently like overeat and eat like crazy. So didn't get an appetizer. Did not get that. And with my wings, I thought, okay, well, I'm definitely going to stop because we talked about some anchoring things too. So I thought I'm going to definitely stop and leave one. And, I knew I was going to stop at 9. And so one of the replacement that we did was that I lean back and take a deep breath. So instead of overeating, when I'm full, that's sort of what I said would happen. And sure enough, I was like, well, I don't know if it's going to do this or not, but I was kind of thinking in my head, where am I going to stop? What am I going to do? So I had the 7th wing and I was good. And then I had the 8th wing, and all of a sudden I literally sat back and just took this deep breath. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so weird how that happened. And then I went and got the little like wet thing, cleaned my hands off. And the 2 wings were sitting in front of me. And mind you, before you did this swish pattern, I would have been pining over those things. I would have been justifying why I should have eaten them. And literally I would have eaten them. No doubt in my mind. And they sat there the whole time. And the waitress came like right before we were getting up, and they said, do you mind like if I take these? And I was like, yeah, no problem. She took them away. And I thought, wow, this is so trippy, because like, I can't remember the last time I left food or so,
uh,
yeah.
but yeah, and an actual process, I think, because that's one of the you went through it quicker than most people. But I mean, it's always a super quick process. But of the 10 minutes, I think 7 of them were me explaining what was going to happen, and then when we ran through it, it's like I think we were done in like 90 seconds, and then I was like, well, just to make sure we're like thorough, ran through it a couple times more. But and then we talked about the how I wanted you to add the anchoring in whenever you went, and then and while you were talking about that, I remember something that I completely allowed slip my mind. When we first met, we did you offered to be a demo for an addiction to French fries, not just any French fries, PJ's French fries in your area. So if anybody from PJ's ends up watching this, they're probably gonna be really mad at me for taking away a customer. But let's chat about that real quick.
I was at PJ's last night, by the way, for the wings, and
Oh, for real?
I did not have the French fries. Yeah, like I said, I mean, it would be the kind of thing where I was starving, and I would have ordered a basket of fries to start off with, because love those things, and then I would have gotten the wings, and I would have overeaten, and that's just the cycle, and which is why I work out a lot too, because otherwise, like
Yeah, when
I
you
would.
sent me that text last night with the picture of the wing, or
Chicken bones. I'm like, I'm sorry if I offend anybody if you don't like looking at chicken bones.
yeah, yeah. Even the vegan in our group was like, nope, for this, totally cool with that. So,
Oh, we have a vegan in our group.
well, she's vegetarian, Melissa.
Oh no.
Yeah. Uh,
Hopefully she was okay with my chicken
yeah,
bones.
she's like, for this, I'm totally cool with it, because she's been through some of her own processes with me, and so yeah, and it's funny how like not only that would gross me out, but here it's freaking awesome. It's so amazing. But I remember for the French fries, just as you start telling us about it, I remember wiggling in your chair and everything, just crawling out of your skin, like craving them, and then I think about 2 or 3 minutes, because something I've told you many times, like I hope everyone gets clients exactly like, because you're the ideal client every time you've shown up, and you do the same thing in class, like you show up 100%, and always so ready to make a change, make an improvement, and you're open to the technique. Any questions you have are just out of curiosity. It's not out of like skepticism or anything like that. And even even last night when you had other things on your mind when we ran through the switch pattern, and then it's like, is that really going to work? Because we have decades of this behavior. How can this 2, 3, 5 minute process, how can it override all of those years of doing things this way? And then bam, do it. But again, like we've preached so much in class, it's all about just understanding the program, or how to program our unconscious mind, and play the game the way it needs it to be played, so it'll play along. It's just outsmarting that 4-year-old that's running our life, which is not too hard to do. 4-year-olds are hard-headed, but they're easily influenced. So it's seeing that, and then say even the time on stage, like you're crawling out of it, and then a couple of minutes later, you're like, I don't even want one. And then I remember I was going into the bathroom, and we were on a break in between session, or it was right after lunch, actually. Lunch break was ending up. I was heading to the bathroom, and saw me grab the way something just miraculous just happened. The waiter came up, and I ordered my food, and then he's like, I ordered a club sandwich or something like that, a turkey club or something. And then he asked if I wanted French fries, and I was like taken aback, like, why would I want French fries? And then it's like I ordered a salad for the first time ever instead of French fries. Yes.
Because I order sandwiches, burgers. It's like, because with me, like you get fries with burgers. And so that's, it's a way for me to get fries without I really feel like a burger. Well, I really want the fries with it. Not that I could get fries alone, but this is sort of my wacky justification that like that voice in my head was telling me. And so, yeah, it was funny because it came up and it came up in such a way as like, oh my God, I don't want fries. I felt it was so rude. And I immediately like realized how rude I was. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And, Jimmy's sitting over there, like we were having lunch and he was in the same workshop. And so I look at him and we just start busting out laughing. And the waiter's standing there going, what the heck's going on? And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's an inside joke kind of thing. And so I was like, I'll take the salad with that. But it was so funny because yeah, I never passed up fries. And mind you, I've had a couple of fries since then, but I have not yeah, it's as though like that craving around fries is gone. And now with this switch pattern yesterday with my cravings, it's hard to explain, but I feel different around food and what I eat and choosing to eat. And literally I had the wings. I had 8 wings and I came home and I had a cup of carrots and I was like, okay, here are my veggies, because I was too full to want to eat something, like a salad or something at PJ's. So it's such a weird feeling. I can't describe it, but I just know that it's different. But the one thing I can say like about this work and like what you were saying is that you have to show up and you have to be willing to just let whatever's going to happen. And that's the key, because if you really want to work on yourself, you have to put aside all those stories that you tell yourself, all of that like literal BS that you've been living with forever. And you have to go into this and you have to say like, I'm just sick and tired of being the way that I am and I want to change. And I think when you have that kind of mentality and you're in that place, that's when you have such miraculous changes. And that's exactly where I was a year ago when I decided to get out of bed and stop making myself be the victim from my divorce. And it's not a kind of road where you just make that decision and then it's a linear path up to the top of the mountain. It's not at all by any stretch, but it's a marathon and you're going to have highs and lows and you got to keep figuring stuff out. And we all have baggage. And believe me, I'm sure we have not gotten rid of all my baggage, but we have gotten rid of like major, major hurdles in my life. And so it's like,
we had we worked together a lot in the short period of time.
yeah,
because we had the other call where you were like, when we were talking about doing the breakthrough session, I think it was last Saturday. I think we jumped on a call because you're like, I've got to do something. I've got all this anger and hatred and all these thoughts running through my head. So I was like, hey, let's jump on a call. We'll set up the breakthrough session, but let's play with something and do a little release. So we talked about the most. I guess the most profound memory based around the betrayal and the infidelity, like the one that just really triggers you the most. And it's like, what's the biggest one? And we played with that a little bit, again, a couple of minutes. And then, and now, when we got on the call, it's like, oh, when I think about this, I want to just hurt people, like almost just like so much anger. And it's like, I can't stand it. It makes me as mad now, if not worse, than it did when it happened. Now what happens when you think of that memory? We don't need to go into everything because I know you're running short on time, but what happens?
Yeah, and that's the weirdest thing. Like and I am not a hateful person at all. I literally, I'm not. My glass is always almost 100% full. I'm always thinking like, okay, this situation happened. How do we make it better? How do we get out of it? So for me to be carrying around that kind of hate that I had it was weighing me down, and I was resentful, and I just couldn't believe I had become this person that I was.
I'm
And
so glad you actually mentioned that too, because that's a lot of reasoning for so many people's things getting buried so deep, is because they're like, that's not me. I'm not this angry person. I'm not this, um, you know, depressed person, or whatever the state is, whatever the emotion is, the label they're putting on it. And so they pack it away because it's like trying to turn away from it. It's like, that's not me. So it just keeps getting buried instead of being dealt with. And it, I remember just how much emotion you had when you were explaining explaining that event and everything. And then at the end, all of a sudden I was like, all right, now think about it. And you were able to start laughing about it. It was, and that's always been, because like we had talked about, in my past, I used to be like a very just, anger was my driving force. It's what got me motivated to do stuff. It's how I interacted with the world, until I learned a better way, and went through these techniques myself. And that was always my evidence procedure of whenever I do any tune-up work now to release anything. It's like, okay, now I think about that same incident and I start laughing. I'm like, it's like, okay, I know we got it all out, because it's like, I'm not one to laugh at those situations. Not in my past. Now I totally am, but
well, and that situation that I picked out was a big deal, because it was the time where I walked in the house, and my husband at the time and my friend at the time were coming up from the basement. And again, I wasn't there, so I don't know what actually was going on. But when her cardigan is off and her hair is disheveled, and you put two and two together. And at this point, I didn't know the affair was going on, but I mean, it was obvious something was going on. And I mean, this was my house. This was my house where my kids lived. And I just remember like the rage when I saw them coming up the stairs. And I'm not going to go into the response that was given, because it's really not important.
yeah, yeah.
The response that they gave, the reason, was just complete BS. I mean, it was a joke, and it was kind of like, how stupid do you think I am? And so, and it was a point in time where I did have a lot of rage around that. And when we did the release on that specific one before the breakthrough, it was funny because the rage on that went away, but there was like you said, when the breakout session was planned, there was a lot of rage in me. And so over the weekend leading up to the breakthrough session, I could feel like anger kind of surging up in other areas. And on Sunday, I was actually really angry and really depressed at the same time, and very distracted. And you had said that exact thing is going to happen, because things are starting to come up, and your mind, your subconscious is kind of releasing things. You're becoming more aware of things. And so I think with some of the release, it's like it made that specific incident funny. And, I still laugh at it, because you relate it to like a Willy Wonka, for all of you that know Willy Wonka, it's the blueberry girl, and like they're coming up the stairs and they're bouncing like bumper cars next to each other, and they're all blue and they're all like bloated, and it was hysterical. And I mean, I still laugh. I was walking the dog after doing that, and I was like chuckling to myself. I'm like, this is funny. But like, it felt like the anger was stronger to like some of the other things. So it kind of diffused the anger into some of the other areas. And that's just because I had so much anger around that. And really, as we found out, pointed back to the rape. And so it just sort of diffused things a little bit. And that's where I think you realized, you were like, okay, this needs a breakthrough session. It's not just sort of taking a couple specific incidences and dealing.
That's the thing, like, we've, you and I've talked about quite a few times, when typical, in most cases with like PTSD or phobia, it's like, okay, we can go to just this one particular case and switch the perception on it and do some release around it, and boom, it knocks out everything else, because everything was founded on that one particular event. But when it came to, and that's kind of what you and I were doing, so we'll play with that, see how well it releases and things. But then what we knew with rape stuff, it's like, okay, there's a lot of unconscious stuff going on, and it was never installed in one traumatic event, because like you said, it was with the rape, it wasn't in the time it happened, because you didn't know what it was, and it wasn't like necessarily forceful and everything else, to an extreme. it's like there wasn't that just boom instant install here. With that, it's funny how the patterns work, because that was a couple of years before, until you're sitting in sex ed class, and then learn what sex was, and then start piecing it together in your mind. And so it's this, a detective with all these clues, and it's like, okay, suddenly now I'm able to connect all the dots, or at least a portion of them, to have a picture of what happened and what's going on. And really, the same thing happened with the affair, because it went on for 7 years before you found out about it. And then again, when you found out, then you found out about all the past experience. So it's like, and the same pattern. But yeah, at least we were luckily able to do the breakthrough right after that. And it's so I knew, because if we schedule it 2 weeks out, it's a gradual that everything comes out. It's funny. The mind knows exactly what it needs to do. And I geek out on it so much. You've seen me geek out on it many times over the last couple months we've known each other. But with you, I was like, okay, we're doing the breakthrough session in like 48 hours from now. So there's going to be some stuff, but you'd already said, look, I'm home for the weekend. The kids aren't really going to be around. And so, okay, it's going to be good. So, so just hang around the house, just be aware of some stuff's going to come pouring out. And because the mind knows, okay, it's going. I just saw that release that quick. The rest of this stuff is out. And it's so awesome. I wish I meant to, and I didn't. I need to get better on this, but I always tell Marina, I was like, on breakthrough sessions, especially when it's stuff like this, I was like, I'm going to take before and after pictures of people, because to be able to show you, because you look totally different today than you did on Monday with all, and you just have to show us.
It depends. I always am like after CrossFit or whatever, so it's like sweaty, my hair's up, who knows? It's like,
oh,
so.
Yeah, but there's just like the friend you saw in Starbucks on Tuesday or Wednesday. Just like he said, like there's a difference just in glow and like just how we posture ourselves, everything, and even a lot of times in our tonality, how we speak, everything else. It's amazing to see that transformation in people. I'm always like, and we've talked about it. It's like when we do longer workshops where there's a lot of breakthrough work. It's like we want to take people's picture as they register and they're coming in, and then at the end of the weekend or whatever it is, so then we're going to do an after picture there and let them compare the two, because it's amazing to see the physical shifts in that.
Right.
And, I talked about it at the live event a little bit. Like there's Chinese face reading. OJ, one of the guys that was there, he was actually he's very good at that, and ran me through it. And we were talking about, because that's what it's all based on. It's like different thoughts, different emotional events get stored differently in our body, and it affects the shape a little bit of especially our face. But
I hate to have to cut this short.
Yeah, no, that's actually where I was going. I was like, I know it's got to be.
Yeah,
you've got your webinar call to do. So thank you so much for everything, and especially agreeing to do this and being patient as we worked out the technical difficulties with Facebook. Thank you again for all of this. You've been amazing to work with, and agreeing to do this. You're going to inspire so many people, and look forward to seeing your emotional warrior journey for you and all your clients.
Well, I need to be thanking you, because you're the pivotal person that helped, pull this stuff out. So the thanks goes right back. So it's a real pleasure working with both you and your wife through this process. So,
well, thank you for all the trust you've put in us from day one, from being a demo on stage to being a client in real life, and then going through the training program so you can learn how to do this. And then it's look forward to seeing all you guys' journey. But the way you've been diving into this and having firsthand experience and knowledge of it, you're gonna really make a huge impact with your clients. So looking forward to it.
The stuff, it works. Like, the stuff really works. It's amazing. you don't even have to understand how, it just works.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, let's just go through it, because after you've been through it, it's so much easier for you to understand, and like me to be able to explain it to you, because
yeah,
it's so simple. It's not going to make sense
I
sometimes
know.
for people. But I will let you go. Enjoy your call. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have a fantastic weekend. And yeah, keep blowing me up with texts and Facebook posts about all these little aha moments and pushing away plates of food and all that. Love it. So
All right. Thanks, Kip.
thank you so much.
All
Love you, Karen. Bye.
right. Okay. Bye.